Welcome to the New Bedford Light Chat. This is Jack Spillane, and we have a great program today. Our special guest is Roderick of The Baker and Devin Byrnes of Destination Soups. We had hoped to have Craig Paiva from No Problemo, the burrito place, but Craig is under the weather this morning, so we hope he feels better real soon. So, welcome, guys. The reason I wanted to have you was, I've lived in New Bedford for 25 years, and when I got here, there were virtually hardly any. I think Maxie's was the only downtown place that was doing any business. And in those 25 years, I've said these three businesses, No Problemo, The Baker, and Destination Soups. Maybe you could throw in Tia Maria's or Green Bean to that, the most successful businesses. And so I thought it would be fun to talk about what it takes to succeed in a lunch spot, what your thoughts are in different types of restaurants in downtown New Bedford, and share that with our audience at the New Bedford Light. So I'll ask right now. We've just come out of this pandemic. I guess we've come out of it. We're out of it for a year or two now, but I hear a lot of buzz. As you know, I live downtown and I'm frequenting all these places. Uh, uh, that It's not quite what it was before the pandemic. Is that accurate, Devin?
Um, I, 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 I can see that as a possibility. I feel like we've been pretty fortunate that for a long time we were negatively impacted quite well. For I don't know what to attribute that to, but I can definitely see that that there's some negative effects, and obviously for a few years it definitely was not what it should be. So you know.
Brandon?
I don't think I've or the baker has felt those negative effects that other people talk about. Um, but it's also a weird metric or a hard metric to measure because as inflation rises, we raise prices. So if you're looking at only the sales and not accounting for how much you raise prices, I guess what we really should be looking at is like foot traffic count or how many tickets are coming in throughout the day, and that would give us a better metric. But as of right now, I don't really feel that um, that hurts that other people have experienced, and fortunately so.
Yeah, to echo Brandon, maybe the numbers at the end of the day are better than they were, but obviously now it takes X amount of dollars more to make those profits than given all the challenges facing us right now with like inflation, especially with food and things like that.
We have
So
a shot that I took this week of Destination Soups at lunchtime with some of the crew serving. You can see uh, they have, if you haven't been there, I think most people watching this probably have, but they have a beautiful dining room and exterior eating space on Wings Court. But it's a downtown lunch spot, so it's tight space.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so when you decided to launch Destination Soups, and I remember you in the old location where the juice
Yep.
place is now, uh,
Yep.
uh, you settled on fresh soup, which I had not, except for Seinfeld, ever seen,
Right.
a place focused on soup before. How did you settle on that?
It's sort of something that happened organically. I had been working at some places in the past, and one of the chefs was very emphatic about me coming up with two original soups every day. So that sort of got me in my, got my chops up. And then I went to New York for a while, and I kind of became the soup guy at some of the restaurants I worked at down there. And then I tried an ill-fated fly by the seat of my pants, sort of a wholesale soup business. Whereas me and another guy in a cargo van, and we deliver soup to places that didn't have commercial kitchens, more like coffee shops and things. Because obviously, you're talking about downtown New Bedford space being a premium, but in New York City, it's a real premium. So a lot of these people didn't have a proper setup for that. So, and I just kind of developed it from there. And when I came back, that space was available. It had been dormant for a few years. It was previously the Green Bean, as you had mentioned, and for some of the more old timers, it was the old Cheap John's Joke Shop. So that space was available. It was in some disrepair, but I could get it for a cheap rent, and I thought it was a good time to go. So made it go, and I thought soup is sort of I don't know. I just think I've always kind of held it dear to my heart in terms of some of the homey aspects of it and the comfort food. That's kind of my style. I always like comfort food. So
I should mention that Devin also at Destination Soups they have an extensive sandwich and salad menu. And here's a photo of Devin chopping vegetables, and
yeah,
I never realized until you told me this week, but I should have. You're chopping all the time, chopping all day because uh, it's a fresh. I mean, this is not opening a can. This is fresh made soups every
correct.
day. He also has, as I said. Uh, an extensive sandwich menu with killer grilled cheese
Yep.
sandwiches and a lot of salads too.
5 salads. Yeah, yeah. So and that when we moved from the old space, which was on the corner, just 2 doors up to where we are currently at 149 Union Street. That enabled us, not that my space is big now, but it enabled us to sort of advance the kitchen a bit more and advance sort of the scope of the menu to include more sandwiches and to include more salads and things like that. Previous to that, on the corner, as you had mentioned, that was a really tight space, and it was mostly just grilled cheese. I think we had one salad at the time and soups. So
But the product was just as quality and
appreciate
the
that. Thank you.
place was always busy, even as
Thank
small as it was. Um,
you. Thank you.
Brandon, I have to say, never in my wildest dreams did I think a European style bakery would come to downtown New Bedford. And I mean, I guess that's not entirely fair because the Portuguese bakeries in the South End, and I think there's a couple in the North End too, are certainly European style bakeries. But yours is, and you have to correct me because I'm just explaining from a layman's uh, term. Your bakery is almost like a Viennese or Parisian bakery, from what I can see. They're very high quality. Uh, I just call them European style pastries, although of course you have some Portuguese flavors mixed in. Tell us about why you thought you could do this in downtown New Bedford.
Yeah, so the original idea was actually a croissant cart um, that would be like a peddler license, and I bought the cart. I didn't have money. It was like sitting in my aunt's garage, thankful to her. And the idea was to like find somewhere to produce croissants and sell them on the streets of downtown New Bedford. That was the mission. Um, and then I just thought of how difficult that would be with like pushing a cart with fresh pastry every day, not knowing the weather elements or what it's going to be. And when you're dealing with like a yeast product, I don't think that would have worked very well. So my grandmother actually happened to be driving by that space on her way to the post office, and she looked inside and she was like, "Hey, maybe this could work." And she sent me the address, and it was the old Braza chicken spot, Braza rotisserie chicken, um, that they had just kind of up and left. I guess it
Yes.
had been and it'd been empty for I think 2 years before we took it over. Um, and it's not really designed to be a bakery, and Devin can attest to this too. Most downtown eatery spots are not designed to be eatery spots. So you stick a hood in where you can, or you stick a fridge in where you can, and a mop sink and a 3-bay, and you try to do the best you can. And having worked in Boston during college and after college, what I saw in the cafes up there was like fresh handmade pastry that was baked every morning, and there was a need for it. And while I loved the Portuguese bakeries down here, I think they focused a little bit more on the bread and maybe the cupcakes when I wanted to do what we call Viennoiserie. So all this stuff kind of stemming from Vienna. But all that breakfast pastries, croissants, bagels, English muffins, Danish, donuts, um, that kind of vision just kind of came to life for downtown. And you're not the only one, because the lawyer that I hired, Brian Glover, he had serious doubts about it. His office is right across the street. And he told me, he's like, "Are you sure this is going to work? I don't know if this is going to work." And yeah, 8 years in, and it seems to be working. So
Definitely has worked, and I think it's the quality of the product in both cases, as well as No Problemo and Tia Maria's. It's the quality of the product. I remember, I kind of like that it's crowded and you can see people actually rolling out the dough. You can see Devin chopping the vegetables. I know that it's fresh food, and that's different than I don't know any number of Saba pizza shops where you're thinking how much of this was ever fresh, like it's pre-made and it tastes. So I think that I think Craig was actually. It's too bad he's not here because he was the first one to do something really fresh, emphasizing a fresh product um, in downtown New Bedford. And his place is I think 24 years now, uh, and again you can see a lot of what they do. You can't see all of it, but the kitchen is right there. Uh, I just think, am I wrong? Is it the freshness of the product that is one of the important ingredients here?
I think so. I think that people can taste it, taste the freshness, and I think that then it sort of feeds into it as you make things fresh product and then maybe a bit popular because of that. Things don't stick around at probably any of our shops for very long at all. Even if I don't have a lot of storage anyway, but I'm saying stuff will come in that day and it'll be gone. I'll make a soup and it'll be gone in a day or whatever. So I just want to echo also, a shout out to Craig. Yeah, he's been a sort of an inspiration, I think, for a lot of us, and in terms of his investment and his hard work in downtown, and obviously the product. I mean, it's great. I frequent both these guys' places quite a bit because I think they both do an amazing job. And Craig was sort of one of the visionaries, as long as as well as Jay of Solstice, and some of these other sort of that's obviously not in the food scene, but some of these other people who these guys sort of were putting their money where the mouth is before anyone was, and taking a risk on New Bedford. And I think it's really panned out, and it's a lot of us have sort of followed their leads. So
Yeah. How many years are you in now, Devin?
we'll be 16 years in December, Jack.
Amazing. So 24 years for Craig, 16, and you said 8 for you,
8 in December,
Brandon.
yeah.
And of course, you've just started Olivia's, which is would it be fair to describe as a fine dining establishment in Fairhaven?
Yeah, we can call it that. It's kind of upscale dining. But yeah, I decided to jump the bridge and come over to Fairhaven because the opportunity was here, but my heart is still in downtown.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth.
And I've been there a few times, Jack, and I can attest that it's delicious. And I have a lot of friends and family who have gone there as well. And Olivia's is top notch, as is the baker.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I also don't want to negate or forget. I think Tia Maria's is also a staple downtown, and Jess does a tremendous job over there in her little. I don't know. She has like a little conglomerate going on in that block where she owns both buildings. She's got a bunch of Airbnb. She's got the cafe. She's killing it down there too. So
No,
testament to her.
I love Jess. She is a woman who is not afraid to take a chance. If when she started, that kitchen was very small, very even smaller than I think you guys, and she just kept at it. The product was good, and when the building next door opened up, which is that gray building you see, she took a chance and she bought it, and I forget which one she owns. She owns one of them, maybe two, but she expanded, and that's full now too.
Yeah.
She is just dedicated again to fresh product. European style food. Uh, I can't compliment her enough. I would have invited Jeff and Jess, except that I thought that three would be a good number, and so we end up with two. But that's show business, I guess.
Well, you could invite him back some other time, Jack. Right?
I will. I think.
I think
But yeah,
speaking to the
Jess is.
freshness. Sorry, Devin. But
No,
this freshness is, we don't have space to not be fresh, in my opinion.
Right.
Space is our number one limiting and aggravating factor, in my opinion, especially when you run a bakery that does bread. Like, everybody wants our sourdough bread, which I appreciate. We work very hard on it, but sourdough bread we chill it overnight in the fridge and then bake it from cold the next morning. So even for 24 loaves a day, that's like a whole fridge that gets filled with bread, you know? Um, it's one of the limiting factors, but it's also forces us to be super fresh, super organized. And, you know, like Devin said, things don't sit around long because there's no space for them. There's no freezer for them to die in the back of and have, you know, a million cupcakes, you know, frozen, ready to go. That's just not how it works.
Well, I
Right.
can attest to that sourdough bread. In fact, I've stopped buying bread anyplace else but the baker because
Oh,
it's just
thank
so
you,
much
Jack.
better than anyplace else. And the sourdough is my favorite because it's just so versatile to do so many
Yep.
different things with. And it's always fresh and it you know keeps in the refrigerator a long time. You know, I'm living alone and I go through it
Yeah.
all.
Thank you.
Um, so have you ever thought about because I'm sure I know uh, Jeff was approached to a franchise and to go out, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be his own guy in his own business. I know uh, Jeff Goggins did franchise with Brick. You guys must have been approached for something like that. Have is that not your thing, or?
I think I was approached like pre-COVID, when we were just, you know, crazy 2019, 2 years in, it was going really well, still going well, but it was just not in the cards for me. And there's a reason I don't like wholesale. It's, you know, these products are what I consider an extension of myself. To an extent, I also have a very talented team that helps me and contributes great ideas and techniques too. But I didn't want someone else touching my product or like being responsible for my product. And it's the same reason we don't do delivery service, like any of those delivery services, because I don't want to transfer the service from my control to somebody else. Because at the end of the day, I think it reflects on my brand. And
Yeah,
the baker is very important to me. So I just don't think it's in the cards for us. And yeah, not interested in that.
yeah, interesting. What about you, Devin?
Yeah.
Have you thought about branching out?
I think I have a similar outlook as Brandon in both regards. I was never sort of formally approached about branching out, but I'd have people who are like, you know, they'll be like, "Oh, I have this space in Warren, Rhode Island," you know, or there's this place in Fall River, and you know, sort of more of an informal kind of conversation, or you guys would do great here, but never sort of like a proper approach in terms of a business plan or anything like that. You know, I think Brandon and Craig and all these people, Jess and Jeff Goggin and so many others, Adam from Play, and I think there's something sort of in us that I think whenever someone will mention something like that, you know, my wife makes fun of me. Is we'll be at a date night up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and there's an empty space there or something. I'll be, you know, my head in the window, like checking it out, you know, just always sort of seeing, always just kind of thinking about other things in terms of like, you know, would this work or what could I do here or that space is really cool, you know, sort of the aesthetic of a lot of that. And also, similar to Brandon, I mean, we don't do any delivery services. And I know a lot of people live and die by the delivery. And, you know, some people will say that's, you know, integral part of their business and that totally works for them. And that's great. But for me, it's, you know, DoorDash kind of hijacked our phone number and stuff for a bit during COVID and when everyone was really going delivery service. And some of the only problems we've had, Jack, in terms of like the logistics of delivery fees or problems with prices were sort of through those services. And I just sort of vehemently was like, I cast them all out, you know, like St. Patrick with the snakes, you know, just I'm done with you guys. So,
You know,
yeah,
I can
it's
say,
just it's too much of a hassle, and I think like Brandon, I think you know this isn't a hobby. This is a you know there's a lot of passion. I think with you know I don't think we're exceptional in the sense of that we're passionate and care about what we do, but I think it's you know I want everything to go very well. I want people to come in and have a great experience. I want people to come in and have a great meal, have a great sandwich, um, and you know it's if things go sideways, which sometimes they do. It really bums us out, and I think it's hard not to take that personal because it is an extension of yourself. You know, you can't be doing this and opening the door year after year, day after day, and coming in and working in the heat and all this, and not have it be personal,
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I worked at a paper in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for 8 years, and it's a great place. It was not as expensive when I was there as it is now.
Sure.
Yeah, we wouldn't want you to go there, Devin. Have you guys ever looked at expanding to bigger places? You did once, Devin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was to your advantage, I think. It allowed you to do more in-house dining. Um,
Right. I feel like in a perfect world, I would. I mean, now, as you probably know, and some people know, we were fortunate enough we had a sort of option to first option, a first refusal in our lease, and we were able to close on that, and we're paying a mortgage now in the space you see. So I'm sort of in this for the
condo?
long
It's a
haul.
condo. It's a condo setup, that
Yeah,
building.
it's a condo. Exactly. So yeah, just what you see there, and I have a small storage space in the basement, which allows me to do this incredible backdrop behind me here.
Yeah.
But
I think what a lot of people don't know is that these downtown restaurants, a lot of them have a lot of their back business in the basement. I know Craig does that, and
yeah,
others like.
yeah. I
What
mean,
about you? Go ahead, Devin.
no. I just think you can always use more space. I mean, I feel like sometimes a successful business is like a goldfish. It'll fill up the space. When I first moved here, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all this space we have. And now I'm like, where am I going to put this stuff? It's like I'm stacking stuff on top of stuff. It's so I don't know. I think if it's a successful place, and if the business is able to grow, fortunate enough for both, all three of us who were invited today, then I think the space is always a premium. And I would love to expand somewhere, but I think I just got to kind of stick with what I got right now.
Yeah, sometimes I think that can be a double-edged sword. I think, at one time I thought I wanted to go to some bigger papers, and then I thought, I go to a bigger paper, I'm just going to be like one guy amongst many, and here I can have more influence. Uh,
Yeah.
but you, Brandon, whether you did think of expanding, you're doing something else now, so that probably solved that issue.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at a bunch of spaces, and I have realtor friends that are looking for me currently. It's kind of a double-edged sword. There's a saying like keep it small, keep it all, versus I'm always worried about staff, especially for a technical position to be one of our bakers. There's a ton of training that goes into what my guys and girls do there. And I feel like I've been training for 8 years, right? Like we've been open for 8 years. I've been training for 8 years. And unfortunately, you don't keep that staff because I find when you get a really great baker, they have ambitions to go do more, go to bigger cities, do different things, which is exactly what I did in Boston and then came home to open the baker. But I just feel like I've been training for 8 years. And now we're finally at a point where I have really good staff in place that I could do and open Olivia's. But now I got the bug of like, we know what the baker can do downtown with street parking, right? What can the baker do in the North End with its own parking lot? What can the baker do somewhere else, maybe in Fairhaven, And then speaking to what we do with production, it's really hard to do production in New Bedford now. I actually get very frustrated sometimes when I go in there because it's so tight, it's so small. You're fighting for table space, you're fighting for fridge space. And it's like, how do we grow past what we're doing right now? Holidays, everybody wants us to do, pies and rolls and bread. And that requires an insane amount of work because it all has to be fresh and you can't do anything leading up to the days because you don't have refrigeration space to hold it cold or safely. So you have to like bake it that night. So that is like what we call the Super Bowl in the baker of like, we do all the prep work, but then that night before is just go, go, go because there's no space to hold anything. So the space is really an issue. I've looked at a bunch of spaces. However, I don't want to move from downtown because that was our home and I love our space where we're in, but I would love to move the production to like a better facility suited for bread and pastry and then maybe ship out in the morning, truck out to the locations. And then in my grand scheme, I have another location down in Dartmouth, and I have another location in Fairhaven. Um, but we know that comes with a lot of challenges that I don't think I'm up for right now.
Well, I hope you definitely never leave your space in a space in downtown New Bedford because it's really businesses like yours that have changed the city. You know, as I said, 25 years ago, we kind of think of what was here for a restaurant. I think there was a predecessor to the
Freestones.
Freestones, which sadly has is now closed. I think there was a predecessor to the Whaling City Diner and Maxis. There really wasn't much, and these businesses that have succeeded, and it's also interesting in that you guys are up until that I can see are involved in the product. You're you know cooking, Devin. You're baking, Brandon. You know, it just seems like you're involved in the product, and I kind of like that. But I realize that it may not be that way forever. You get bigger, and it's not possible. But Devin, you have some folks that have been working for you for a long time. They're really like part of the downtown family, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think Brandon alluded to it earlier, but I mean, the concept is mine, and the vision's mine, and sort of the direction is mine, and I definitely put in the hours here. But I mean, without my staff, it couldn't happen at all. So, I mean, I have some really solid workers who have been with me for years, and um, it's great. I mean, right now the staffing is sort of as good as it's been in years, and that's a really good feeling. I know that Brandon alluded to it. Sometimes staffing woes are really uh, there. You know, I'm sure it won't be the last time for me, but it's you need a lot of labor. You need a lot of people sort of in it with you to make it go. So when there's hiccups along the way, which there inevitably will be, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. So um, yeah, I'm thankful that people have been able to stay with me, and I like to try to keep a positive work environment. And yeah, it's been great.
It's all about the people, the quality of the people. I wanted to ask you both about specifically what it's like being in downtown New Bedford now. Obviously, you're successful. That's not the problem. But what is um, what is great about being in downtown New Bedford? What's challenging? Is that a fair
I,
question? I hope.
I think so. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
start.
sure.
Um, so we do breakfast and lunch Wednesday through Sunday. We've noticed that Wednesday through Friday, we get our what we call downtown regulars, people that work or drive through downtown. They stop in for breakfast or stop in for lunch, and they're great. And then we're also open Saturday and Sunday, and that's when I say the rest of the city comes to see us. Um,
And suburbs.
in the suburbs, absolutely, a lot of Dartmouth, Marion, Mattapoisett folks come to see us, which I'm very grateful for. And I don't know if that's a causation with the meters of finding parking, of not competing with the office workers who do park on the streets or whatever it is. Um, I love that you can see how Devin and I kind of know every business owner in downtown because there's a community that I think supports each other. I go to Green Bean on my days off to get lattes. I go to Devin's shop to get lunch. Sometimes on my way to Olivia's down Union Street, I hit Craig's spot and they all hit my spot. It's a really great community of business owners and shop owners that we've kind of developed, which is really cool. I have struggles with the logistics of like running a business downtown. Like, for instance, you just brought up, I keep my trash barrels because they pick up trash Monday through Friday, but our busiest days are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we have to house all that trash somewhere, right? We don't have space for a dumpster. I don't have any extra land to put that. So we were keeping it in the space on Union Street. What was that building called?
Keystone building.
Yeah, the Keystone building, which is now going to be turned into apartment buildings, right, in the forthcoming years. Um, but that was a luxury that we had. So now the landowner has asked me to remove those pretty soon. Where am I going to keep trash from Friday to Monday morning? You know
So
what I mean?
is
It's
that
those
something?
little things that kind of irk me about how we grow or how we do more in downtown.
Is that something that the city government or the Chamber of Commerce or somebody can help you with? I mean, obviously, we're a very valuable business to downtown New Bedford. There ought to be somebody that, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I without getting bitter about some of those things, I think there's just kind of a thing like you're on your own. You know, you rented this spot, now figure it out. And I do feel a disconnect between city government and the business owners. I've said that since the beginning, especially when I took on the meter increases through the mayor's office, and that post kind of went viral and somehow pinned me against city government, which is not what I'm looking to do. But I do feel an obligation to speak up for my customers, for my workers, and for the general community. But and that's what I mean, that went on without any input from business owners downtown or any input. Yeah, they did a traffic study, but you know, who paid for that traffic study, and were they looking for a certain result? Could they have gotten it that way? You know, who knows? But I would love a better connection to city government, which is why I supported Devin in his run for city council, because we needed that kind of businessman representation on the council to kind of help thwart some of these issues. But unfortunately, he did very well for his first time. I hope he does it a second time.
Yeah, usually sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times in my experience in New Bedford to get your name recognition up there. Although Devin and you, who could be more better known, I'll just like I'm a journalist. Sometimes I play the role of the heavy, so I'm willing to be the heavy. City councilors, Mayor Mitchell, Brandon has a trash problem. Can you help him solve that? That's that. This is an incredibly valuable business to the downtown. Let's solve that. What about you, Devin? You ran for city council. Was that because of some of the
Yeah,
challenges?
I think so. I think it's just I think that we need I think we needed some new perspectives on there, and I think that small business, it is challenging, especially in recent years, and I think that we needed sort of a conduit. We needed a sort of a go-to person that could try to take some of these concerns to city government and try to work in a proactive way to try to enable and empower some of the small business community. But back to your original question, I mean, I think Brandon echo, a lot of what he mentioned was I agree with in terms of the positives of doing business in downtown New Bedford. Is I feel like we do have a really nice small business community where a lot of us will support each other, and I'll run up to Brandon for some ice, and Brandon will borrow a cup of sugar from me, and I'll borrow cilantro from Craig Paiva, and we all support each other in that regard. And I think some of the challenges, I mean, I think it's the parking. I know it's like a broken record. It's the New Bedford broken record, and I've lived in, as a lot of people have, we've lived in big cities, but like it or not, New Bedford is a car culture. So whether you can go and say, this is not the case in Providence or Boston, it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I can say, well, the parking in New Bedford is so much easier than it is in New York City, which is obvious, right? And I'll park 4 blocks in New York City to walk to the cafe or whatever. But the mindset here is that it's a driving culture. And if you can go to some of these communities around us where there's a parking lot or there's plenty of parking, and some will argue, oh, you'll walk as far as you would in the mall to go to Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever it is. Yeah, that's true. But the concept is that, and I think sort of some of what we're facing a little bit is the bad reputation of New Bedford, which is still pervasive today. And I think that a lot of us have invested our time and energy into downtown, trying to make it a more positive place, trying to make it perceptive, trying to change some of that perception that downtown is only filled with, ne'er-do-wells and closed up storefronts. I think we're trying to change that perception that it's not a scary place all the time. And but I think that's a lot of the challenges of doing business downtown New Bedford is people don't want a parking ticket. They don't want to walk 3 blocks from the Z Garage to go get a cup of soup, and they don't want to get asked for a cigarette on their walk. So I mean, and this is the perception that we're against every day. So I think those are some of the challenges in doing business. But I love I wouldn't do it any other place. I live a mile and a quarter from here, and I love coming downtown. I love supporting other businesses, and I love doing business here.
Well, the downtown of 2024 is not the downtown of 2000. There's lots of businesses thriving. There's more and more apartments and people living down here. So I think
Absolutely.
it is becoming an urban culture. If I could appoint you or one of you the parking czar tomorrow, what do you think? What would your recommendations be? I mean, because I've heard it argued both ways. One, I've
Yeah.
heard it, we took out all the meters, then some people who work downtown would just park on the street all day long, and it still wouldn't solve the problem of, so the meters keep people moving. But I know myself, I live downtown, so I don't, but I walk a lot, but I don't mind um, parking if it's easy at the meter, but if I can't find parking, then I mind it. So, I don't know. Is that just part of urban life, or I mean, I'm interested in solutions. If you guys have a recommendation.
I
Well,
think from my perspective, if we during COVID, especially, they did those like quick 15-minute pickup spots, which was super helpful. And I really thank the parking commission for doing that. It was like you could apply for one or ask for one right in front of your business, so people could zip in, pick up an order, and leave. Right. Most of my business is now takeout because we don't have a ton of tables in the space. And sometimes that aggravation of having to park in between, two big work trucks, or park a block and a half up when it's raining or not nice weather, especially in the winter, especially with ice covered cobblestone or sidewalks that are not well maintained, is hard. I also think there should be some kind of stipulation for business owners and workers to get like reduced parking fees. Currently, I'm paying for parking for all my my morning bakers who come in the early morning and then leave halfway through the day. So I pay for a spot for them privately up the street from the lot, but it's still a 2-block walk down. And then we have the issue of safety. I've had several coworkers say they don't feel safe walking in at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning by themselves because of who's hanging around, who's sleeping on the doorstep next to us, who's hanging out on the library steps, the commotion you hear from the bus terminal. So not only do the customers feel that, and it's also the staff that I have to make sure is safe and protected, and they feel safe working at the baker. You know what I mean? It's really an unfortunate part of doing business downtown. I don't know all the solutions. I feel like that's above my pay grade. But I do think if we had a voice with city government, a link between business owners and city government, maybe we could have a great conversation to kind of figure out a better way to do it versus this way. I will also say, I think we need to get rid of the app and go to the credit card machines on the streets like they do in the bigger cities, because a lot of tourists get fed up with the app. And I've talked to them. Why do I have to download an app if I don't have any money to pay for parking meter? I have a card right here. But you have to download the app. You have to upload your card. You have to pick the zone. It's actually not very touristy friendly if that's what the goal is for the city. You know what I mean?
Credit card would be better.
A credit card machine like Plymouth has, or Boston has, Providence has it. You have a kiosk, you pay, and then you put the sticker on your window,
Yeah, so let's take them one at a time. How about if they bring back that pandemic program, and every lunch or dinner business gets one space in front of their business that could be in and out, just 15-minute parking, and that's the way it is. If you're running a restaurant, you get that space. You think that would be helpful?
I would love it, but I would ask for 3 or 4.
Yeah, I would ask for at least 2 spaces. I mean, that's
Okay.
the thing, Jack, is the thing that is funny. Well, not funny, but the thing that's ironic is that most of the businesses that are lunch businesses that are getting crunched by the meters, your clientele, similar to Brandon, I do probably 60% out the door. So those, the people who are sitting down for a longer meal typically will be at night. So a lot of times people are running into the Green Bean for a coffee and a smoothie, or running into No Prop to grab a burrito to go, or my place to grab a cup of soup and a grilled cheese. And most of the time they're in and out in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So So I think it would.
I don't know if the city's going to give you 3 or 4 spaces, but maybe 2, maybe some sort of compromise uh, uh, you could do. What about well, go ahead, finish up your point,
No,
Devin.
no, no. I mean, that's basically it. I just think that we have to be realistic. And, when the city will say, "Oh, there's plenty of parking in the Z Garage or on Elm Street," yeah, I mean, there is plenty of parking, but it's very unrealistic for anyone with a child in tow or mobility issues or whatever to hoof it X amount of blocks in inclement weather or whatever it is to go get some croissants from Brandon's place or whatever it is. I just think
Yeah,
it's not
I agree.
it's not realistic
The
to the
garages,
model of a lot of the places that exist down here.
I think the garages only work for people who are working someplace and gonna be there all day. The garage works for that. You only have to make the walk once. The garage works if you go to the theater or maybe the museum. But I don't think the garage works for going in and out to a lunch place, certainly. Uh, so I think that's a good idea to have the 15-minute, bring the 15-minute thing back. I think it's a good idea to have an option of a credit card or an app. I mean, young people very comfortable with the apps, but not everybody is. So the option to use the credit card first. I want to talk about the street people in the downtown because everybody talks about that.
Can I make one more point about parking?
Yep.
Just quickly. Um, and it's one of the contention points that the mayor and I spoke about, how people can meter feed all day and stay there, right? The whole concept of this plan with the different zones leading out to the outskirts of downtown, where you can park 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours as you get further away from the hub, was that they wanted constant movement, right? Of people not sitting at meters all day so that there was always a space available. However, you can feed the meter with the app. So like the app runs out in 3 hours, you just re-up it. You get a little notification on your phone, you re-up it. And from my knowledge, they're not ticketing people to move, right? Not that I want more tickets because I don't think that's the answer, but I do see cars parked on the street during my entire service time, which is from 8 to 2, which is 6 hours, So someone is doing that and we're not thwarting that problem or alleviating that problem by the app either.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it doesn't
confused
seem
because
to work for downtown. I
I
don't get
thought
it.
that there was a limit of 2 hours, and then after 2 hours, they could ticket you whether you fed the meter or not, and they could say that your 2 hour is the maximum time. I think I've been ticketed that way. That because I know if I'm going to be more than 2 hours, I move the car after 2 hours. And sometimes I live downtown. If I have work being done in my house and I have a contractor, I move my car out of my driveway and I'm on the street and I got to move that after 2 hours. I thought because they don't want you in the same place.
Right. But from what I understand about the system and how the zones work, right? If you look on the meter street of Pleasant Street, all the meters have the same zone numbers. So how do they actually know that you moved your car unless they're taking detailed notes as to which car is in which space, which I don't think they're doing at all.
They
So
used to
I
track it.
think there's a
They used to
I think
track
there's
it
a
on the street.
flaw. Right. I think there's a flaw in the system now, and that function does not work. And I only bring this up because I had a conversation with a doctor from South Coast Health yesterday who said when she gets off of her 24-hour shift, she drives down, turns on Pleasant Street. If she can find a parking spot, that's where she'll get breakfast. She'll come in and have breakfast. And then she told me it's like divine intervention. If there's no parking spot, then she doesn't need the baker that day, which hurt me as a business owner. I appreciate her trying, right? But if you don't have a parking, this is what we're dealing with. If you don't have a parking spot close or in front of your business, people are just going somewhere else. There's more options now. They have drive-throughs on all the new locations that they're building. So it's like, how feasible is it to keep growing and going in this space downtown?
Yeah, it's all about the convenience, and that's just the nature of people. And I know myself, if I can't get in quick, if it's either easy to park at the meter, I'll do it. But if it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy, I'm not driving around and around.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
let's spend a little time talking about the street people in downtown New Bedford. I'm using the term street people because I don't think that all of them are necessarily homeless, although some of them certainly are. There's just a lot of people hanging out. The bus station, the steps of the library, used to be the wall at City Hall, but I think that they've cleaned that. Custom House Park can get kind of gamey sometimes. I think most of those people are harmless. A few of them are annoying, and can really be panhandling aggressively. But sometimes I give, a lot of times I don't. But I don't. I mean, I do feel like I wouldn't walk into a crowd of them because I think that you could be vulnerable. But on an individual basis, it's okay. But I think that street people are a problem in every urban city that I've ever lived in. And what they say, and I'm not sure I necessarily buy this, that is that the courts have found that it's the vagrancy laws, move on. You can't hang out here all day. That you have a right to be in a public space. I don't know why. I think that they should open up the front door of the library again, and then if people are using it, then they won't be sitting there and using it as a bathroom in the portico. But I don't know. What do you guys think of solutions to the street people downtown?
I mean, it's a complicated issue. I mean, talk about above our pay grade. I mean, it's a national issue. I think it's gotten worse in some regards. I think that in tandem, with the housing crisis, I think isn't helping. We have a lot of mental health issues. We have a lot of addiction issues in the city, which doesn't, that's a direct feeder to people living unhoused on the streets. So there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, as in terms of running a business down here, it's a challenge. I mean, Wings Court around the pandemic and much of 2021, 2022 was really, I would say, overrun. Just in terms of people, bathing, cutting their hair, violent drunken fights in the middle of the afternoon. And I have tables out there, and I'm sympathetic, and I feel badly for some of these people and what they're going through and where their life has gotten to them to this point. But at the same point, it makes it very challenging to do business there and to have customers feel comfortable to have lunch outside, or customers to feel comfortable to walk through Wings Court as a cut through. And sort of my argument was, I think that people have the right to assemble in public spaces, right? But I think if the public spaces become sort of this almost a Wild West kind of atmosphere there, then it no longer is a public space. The public in general, does not feel comfortable going to that space. So I don't really know what the answer is. There's a lot. I mean, obviously we have some services in town. We have a lot of services in town, but we could always use more. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure. And
I know
I
you
think
met with
that,
I know you met with the police chief about a year or so ago.
yeah.
Has that helped? Is there a bigger police presence than there was
You know,
before?
there was for a bit, Jack. If I'm being completely honest, there was for a bit, and then it kind of dissipated. For whatever reason, Wings Court has been really quiet in the last, I would say, year, and it seems like most of that population has migrated up to sort of the bus station, as you guys alluded to, post office steps, city hall steps. But I mean, yeah. I walked to the post office one day, and I walked past a bunch of folks on the city hall steps, and they were being very aggressive to me out of nowhere. And I didn't, I was minding my business. They were, basically
Yesterday afternoon, there must have been
trying to
20.
start something,
Must have
and
been 20 people hanging out in the library steps, the front
yeah.
steps of the library. It's really, really intimidating. Um, uh, on the other hand, I mean, Wings Court, for anybody who's watching who doesn't know, is a beautiful urban courtyard. It's brick, it has nice plantings. I know that on Friday and Saturday nights, or Thursday and Friday nights, the Poor Farm has made it work where they have music, and
Yeah.
it's a very safe, looks like a safe place to me. So that time of day, it seems to have worked. I do see people at both your place, Destination Soups, and Brick, um, uh, using the tables. So some people are not intimidated, but the people on Wings Court, um, who are hang out in the walls in the center of the court. And I'm wondering if a redesign of that might help, or something. Have you talked to the mayor or your city councilors about it?
I have not. I know that the Wings Court process. I mean, when we had moved to our space currently, which we are, for anyone who doesn't know, we abut Wings Court. We're basically half of our spaces on Wings Court. We have a few tables out there, but that Wings Court rehab had just been completed. Before that, when I had first come back to town, it was essentially like a gravelly cut through, almost like a glorified alleyway. So I think they've done a lot of work to it. And I think it does look good. I don't know about redesigning it to make it so that people can't sit there. I don't know what the answer is. I think some of this will be somewhat remedied by just more people living downtown, and which is coming very soon in terms of all the housing units that are going up in the next few years. And just more people, eyes and ears on the streets, and more people sort of utilizing some of these spaces, hopefully, in a public way. And I think that some of the programming that the city's done and Wings Court and Custom House Square has been great. I think we need some more of that. And I think more people around is in general a good thing,
What about you, Brandon? Do you ever have people complaining about the street people? You mentioned some of your employees are intimidated.
Yeah, we have a couple incidents, especially over the past year. I also met with police. I forget the sergeant's name that we met with, and he was basically like, "If you need us, call us. We're in the area, but we're not right here." And they were very helpful. I do see an increased police presence now, especially since Smashed NB opened up down the street across from the bus terminal, and they're doing late night service on like Friday and Saturday. And I've noticed that a cop is kind of like parked in the bus terminal, making sure the presence is felt and known. But we've had incidences where like individuals with mental health have come in and kind of like disrupted service and yelled and hollered at certain things. And at first I was having me and Gabe, my head baker, who's a big guy, kind of escort this guy out or these people out. But then the cops were like, "No, don't approach, just call us." But it's like, okay, so this incident happens. I'm supposed to call you. You're 5 to 7 minutes away, maybe 10. Like by the time, what happens between that time? You know what I mean? This is clearly a mentally unstable person. So it was a little rocky, especially during the summer. I think as we move into the cooler months, just like with everything, tends to settle down a little bit. But it's definitely a concern of mine, and worried about my customers and if they feel safe coming to the baker. That's always a concern of mine. I don't know the solution either.
I think for the most part, people depend, just judging from the crowds, particularly on Saturday and Sunday, they come to the baker, people feel safe. Although I don't think the street people problem is as pronounced on Saturday and Sunday as it is during the week for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why that is.
I don't know either. But when the police station was open downtown, we did I feel like, to use your word, street people did not cross the police station or come anywhere close to it. So I have noticed that now it starts to kind of grow from the bus terminal and the post office steps. And, along the building of the Masonic building, which we're in, I see 3 to 4 people sleeping in alleyways every night, which is super sad. And I wish we could do more. I don't know the answer or how we solve everybody's problems,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you guys are not social workers, but I think you're out there on the front lines, and your perception of what might be helpful is valuable.
But imagine, my morning baker or my overnight baker who starts at 11 p.m. Is a 5'2", 100-pound girl who's doing a great job. But if she has to, move so she can enter the building. Mind you, we only have one entrance. There's not a back entrance to this building. That could be intimidating for her. And I think my job as the business owner to make sure she feels safe coming and going from work. It's one thing once you get in the building and you lock the door, but you actually have to get in the building to do that. And what obstacles are in the way? I think that's a challenge of downtown and one we have to be prepared for.
I see people sleeping in doorways all the time. Have you had them in your doorway?
I have
a couple times. I have, yes.
Yeah, you have too, but Devin.
Oh yeah. There was there was a man there, probably maybe 2020, who was there almost every night for a while, and then recently a young lady was sleeping there. And I don't know, Jack. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it really is. But at the same point, it's like we need the bakery needs to come deliver our bread, and you know, we need to have the guy come in at 7 in the morning to start the soups and to get everything rolling. And, you know, so I mean, it's we have to do business too, you know. And I don't know. Yeah.
I know David Lima, you know, in the
Yeah.
homeless response network does a great job.
Yeah.
There's only so many people that they can get to, and as I said, all these people are not homeless, but they are out there on the street and loitering, and you know, they're good people, they're nice people, but they have some problems,
Of course.
And all people have a right to use the downtown, and
Right.
so it's a tough problem. I don't think it's just a problem in New Bedford,
No,
but
not at all.
we only have a few minutes left, but I'll just briefly touch on the business improvement district that went down this year. I know some of the business owners, some of the people who run the actual either retail or restaurant businesses had some mixed feelings about that. I don't know whether that's over for good or not, but anybody want to share some thoughts about, you know, what could help? Is there any kind of a business improvement district that would help, or is it kind of overrated in terms of what that kind of an organization can do?
Um, for me, I felt like the timing wasn't great, Jack, because there's so many. New Bedford's really at this sort of point of flux right now. Like I said, alluded to before, and as you know, there's a ton of housing coming in downtown, which is going to increase the population. The train, the long delayed train, supposedly is supposed to be here any day now.
It's actually coming.
I know, but it's like as per, you know, appropriate. It's like, oh, it's going to be this time. No, it's 6 months out. No, it's 6 months out. So, you know, of course, it's not going to show up when we expect it. But anyway, that's coming. I just felt like, and I just felt like it wasn't great timing at all. And I had some concerns about some of the somewhat permanentness of it, in the sense of like the buy-in for 5 years, and I had some serious concerns in terms of how it could be potentially weaponized or used to put some more pressure on some smaller property owners, whereas some of the larger property owners might be able to absorb some of those costs a little easier, or could sort of dictate some of the terms. I know that there was a lot of talk about representation and things like that. I don't know. I mean, for me, it didn't feel right, in terms of the timing and what the potential benefits for New Bedford at this time.
Brandon,
I just say I was impressed with the response from the small business community, and it just seemed to. Everyone seemed to come together and fight this one thing, which showed a lot of community, in my opinion. I do think, like, you know, whoever created the bid or this particular bid maybe should have taken into account representation before they approached it. And I think there was some, you know, not clarity or unclear issues with it, where they weren't very transparent in how they came about it or how they got it to the city council level. And like I said, I learned about it 2 hours before the first meeting. And I feel like I'm a very in tune guy with what's going on in the city. Same thing with Devin. And it had been talked about years ago, but then it came back up and it was already in front of the city council for a vote. It was just a very odd thing. And I felt like they felt like they were just going to sail it through. And then they got this response from the small business community, like, whoa, can we talk about this? And they took it back. They made some changes, but I think by that time it wasn't enough, especially with the representation fact. And Devin's right. It was a 5-year contract. And my whole issue was it wasn't going to be the landowners paying that. It was going to be the tenants who have triple net leases who were going to pay that bill. So I was also worried that the city would be let off the hook with certain services that we expect from the city, especially when you're paying the highest commercial tax rate in the area, you know? So it just seems not the right fit for downtown. But I was really impressed with the community that banded together to kind of fight it. I didn't expect to see a rally like that in front of City Hall, you know, with all those business owners. And it was great to see.
yeah, it'd be good to bottle that energy and do something.
Can we fight parking next?
I would have to say, if you're going to have a business improvement district, you have to have buy-in from the small businesses. It doesn't make any sense if just the big property owners, really want it, but the small business owners have mixed feelings. So you got to get buy-in, and I don't think they had buy-in. This hour has blown by, guys. It's just really fascinating talking to you. I've known you both for years, and yet I think I've found out more that about the downtown scene than I ever knew before. Before we close, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to mention you think might be important?
I just personally want to say, being a business owner, while it is challenging and almost like a lifestyle, I think it's very much worth it. And I know when I was coming up and working for other people, a lot of times the owners would be like, don't get into it. It's not worth it. It's not fun. And while it has its moments and it's not certainly always rainbows and profit, right? It has been very rewarding. And for those entrepreneurs out there that are thinking about taking the step, I would encourage you to take the risk, because it pays off sometimes. And even if it doesn't pay off, the journey is still worth it. But don't be discouraged by some of these bitter business owners that don't want to encourage new businesses to come up or to get involved, because I really hated that part, especially about restaurant owners. They were like, this sucks, blah, 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 blah. And I think you have to know what you're getting into, do your homework, and then take the risk if you feel inclined. But don't let other people dictate what you should do,
You guys took a chance and succeeded. Devin?
Yeah, similar to Brandon. I mean, it's definitely not for everybody, but there's a certain great feeling to kind of come in and take it. Sometimes you take a step back and you look at create it, and it's a really good feeling. Or when someone says, hey, that was one of the best sandwiches I've ever had, or man, that soup was the best tomato soup I've ever had, or it's such a great vibe in here. Any of these things, it's to be able to sort of have a concept and create it through hard work and some capital and a ton of sweat, and have it come to fruition where you've hopefully bettered someone's day a bit, is a really nice feeling. It's a really nice thing. And so in some ways it's very rewarding. Some days you want to, bang your head against the wall and, nothing seems to go right. But most of the time it's not easy, but it's rewarding for sure. So.
Well, thank you both for participating. My guests today have been Devin Byrnes of Destination Soups and Brandon Roderick of the Baker and Olivia's in Fairhaven. They've been talking about the downtown restaurant scene. This is Jack Spillane signing off for the chat.
Thanks, Jack.